not to excess, just so you can talk to a girl. Okay. It does help get your courage up. I mean, it absolutely does. Speaking of that, I mean, our healthcare system is really based on World War II era thinking about healthcare. Remember, they couldn't pay people for some reason, and so they paid them in healthcare. That's how we got this employer-based system. That's it. It doesn't have to be that way.
It's, you know, people will just complain about anything.
We all get paid to have opinions on everything. I have no opinion on it.
Most people expect Bill Maher to sound cynical, sarcastic, maybe even dark. But this time, he didn't just crack jokes. He hit a nerve so deep that half the internet laughed, and the other half wanted to file a complaint with customer service. Because when the panel started talking about kids and happiness, Maher launched into a rant about modern parents that was so vicious, so brutally honest, and so uncomfortably accurate that the studio audience didn't know whether to clap or apologize. He basically said today's woke parenting culture isn't just annoying, it's destroying both kids and their parents. And the worst part? Maher claims the whole mess was self-inflicted. But the way he explains how we got here, that's where things get wild.
Conclude by saying the reason I'm so mad at the Democrats is because as a voter, the issues that were important to me were democracy and the environment. And now, there's no one to champion or defend either of them because you, with your aggressively anti-common sense agenda and shitty exclusionary attitude, blew it. You lost everything, House, Senate, White House, Supreme Court, and left us completely unprotected and ready to be violated.
Maher starts by pointing out the pressure modern parents put on themselves. He's watched families turn raising a child into a full-time performance, where every second has to be supervised, every snack has to be organic, and every emotion has to be processed, like they're running a tiny therapy clinic inside the living room. He's seen parents hover like drones over their kids, terrified that one wrong move will end up on social media labeled as problematic. And he doesn't blame the kids for any of it. He blames the parents themselves. Because, in his words, parents today act like the universe appointed them the project managers of childhood. He compares all of this with his own upbringing, where his parents didn't track his mood swings, pack artisanal lunches, or act like cruise directors planning his entertainment schedule. They let him exist without a 24/7 surveillance system, and he's convinced that most kids were raised that way, left alone to develop independence, resilience, and occasionally a little boredom. But Maher says modern parents treat boredom like a breach of human rights. And according to him, this cultural shift didn't happen by accident. It exploded the moment society convinced parents that danger was lurking around every corner. Reports claim there's been a huge rise in safetyism, where people push the idea that kids must be wrapped in bubble wrap and emotionally shielded from everything. Critics online argue that parents who don't constantly supervise their kids get judged instantly, as if freedom itself were some outdated relic. And Maher thinks this non-stop fear has turned ordinary parenting into a high-stakes anxiety contest. If a kid isn't thriving every moment of the day, someone points fingers. But Maher saves his sharpest jab for the parents who complain about this lifestyle, because when one woman on another show said she wished she had just 1 hour of peace from packing lunches and driving kids around, Maher didn't sympathize. He didn't nod. He didn't fake empathy. He just smirked and said, "You parents did this to yourselves." The crowd burst out laughing, because he wasn't wrong. When Maher looks at modern parenting, he doesn't see victims. He sees people who chose a lifestyle that society glorified, but rarely questioned. He sees parents who voluntarily signed up for stress, exhaustion, and a permanent state of self-imposed guilt. And he contrasts that with his own life, openly saying he never had kids. And guess what? He's doing just fine. He's rested, successful, peaceful, and unapologetically happy. No early morning wake-ups, no school drop-offs, no meltdown negotiations in the cereal aisle. He's not miserable, and he makes sure everyone knows it. The moment that really set the studio off was when Scott Galloway explained the arc of happiness. He said humans are generally happiest up to about age 25, then hit a dip between 25 and 45, which is when people typically have kids, and then get happier again around their 50s. And when Galloway started listing the reasons for the unhappy years, Maher leaned in like someone watching a horror movie in slow motion. Galloway talked about financial stress, losing loved ones, career pressure, and how raising kids is objectively difficult. And Maher couldn't resist. He jumped in, practically shouting over the laughter, pointing out that every TV show, every movie, every interview paints parenting as pure chaos. He even joked that the only real conspiracy might be pretending it's enjoyable at all. The crowd roared, not because it was harsh, but because deep down, everyone knows at least one parent who always looks 5 minutes away from a breakdown. What made this part even sharper was the research Galloway referenced. Reports suggest that people with kids often experience more day-to-day stress and less personal freedom. And while many claim kids bring meaning, the reality is that those early years can be exhausting, isolating, and financially draining. Maher listened, nodded, and then delivered the punchline, "Sounds awful." The audience exploded, but Maher wasn't done. He thinks the problem isn't just that parents are tired, it's that kids raised under this system are becoming fragile. He sees a generation being shielded from discomfort, risk, independence, and even basic conflict. And he believes that when parents treat normal challenges as emergencies, kids grow up thinking the world is supposed to protect their feelings at all times. Online critics argue this creates young adults who freeze at the slightest stress. Rumors circulate about schools banning basic childhood activities because they're too intense. And whether those claims are exaggerated or not, Maher thinks the overall trend is real. If kids never learn resilience, they won't magically develop it out of nowhere. And he pushes even harder when he suggests that modern parenting isn't even about the kid anymore. He says it's about the parents, their image, their identity, their need to look like superheroes who never slip up. In Maher's view, today's parenting culture is more about showcasing effort than raising capable humans. Critics online argue that social media turned kids into accessories and parenting into a competitive sport, where the goal isn't raising a grounded adult, but proving you're the perfect parent for the internet to applaud. And Maher thinks the result is a generation raised under pressure, anxiety, and expectations they never asked for. What he finds so ironic is that parents constantly claim they're overwhelmed, exhausted, and desperate for freedom, yet they keep replicating the same patterns. He's watched people turn themselves into unpaid chauffeurs, homework supervisors, personal chefs, emotional support counselors, and scheduling coordinators. And Maher's take is brutally simple. If you make parenting harder than it needs to be, you can't complain that parenting is hard. But the moment that really stuck with people came when Galloway confessed something unexpected. Even with all the stress, he said being around his kids gives him a sense of purpose he can't find anywhere else. He said there are moments when he feels like he's here for a reason, a feeling that only appears when he's with them. And Maher didn't argue with that. He never denies that kids can bring meaning or that families can be fulfilling. What he's roasting is the expectation that parenting must be an all-consuming, self-sacrificing, identity-erasing lifestyle. Maher's warning is simple. Parenting isn't broken because kids changed. It's broken because parents changed, because they allowed society to convince them that constant misery equals good parenting. He believes people can raise healthy kids without destroying their own lives in the process. And he believes kids can become stronger if their parents stop treating the world like a trap. At the end of the show, the panel joked that Galloway's next book should be titled, "How I Broke All of Scott Galloway's Fears and I'm Happy as Hell." And Maher didn't disagree. He's proof that happiness doesn't require following everyone else's blueprint. Not everyone needs kids. Not everyone needs the stress. Not everyone needs to perform parenting for social approval. And the world won't end if people admit they prefer peace over chaos. So whether you agree with him or not, Bill Maher's message is hard to ignore. Modern parenting has turned into a pressure cooker, and someone needed to say it out loud. He didn't attack parents. He attacked the expectations crushing them. And maybe that's why the audience laughed so hard, because finally, someone called out the nightmare nobody wants to admit they created. But here's the real question. Is Maher right? Or is this just another generational misunderstanding waiting to blow up again?